Hello and welcome back to the Right Brain podcast. Today we have my friend Emmy on here, who I'm so excited to see. I haven't seen her in a while. You guys might recognize her from American Idol, and she's a very talented singer and songwriter. And yeah, we're so happy to have you today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so normally Emmy just had a baby and she looks gorgeous. So I'm very grateful for her to be here today.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. She has a very supportive husband here too.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, normally we start off the podcast. We like to ask you kind of about what you were like as a kid and your childhood and everything. So
my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to, again, because, my perspective is looking at how your brain developed and, looking at unique skills and also different vulnerabilities and all of that. They kind of all come together, and that's one of the themes of this. So, just like what were you like as a kid, your family? I mean, were there any issues that you were aware of health-wise as a child?
Yeah, I was premature. So I was supposed to be born on March 12th, actually on my husband's birthday, and I was born January 10th.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And so my lungs were undeveloped, and so I was in an incubator, and then my mom got sick and stuff, so I wasn't able to kind of be around my mom for the first 30 days, which I've heard affects you as a kid, but I'm not really sure if that's true.
No, it definitely does, actually. Ellis had a similar thing where she was in an incubator she was in a NICU unit for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And he says being under fluorescent lights, because they don't ever turn the lights off, that it messes with your circadian rhythm as a child, which it's, I can't change that now, but I guess it plays into how your brain develops.
Why were you in the NICU?
I think the nurse was sick or something.
Yeah, she caught an infection, and she had some blood in her stool as a newborn infant. So they didn't let us bring her home for a while, and it was killed. My wife had to go there, which is, I'm sure, what your mom had to worry about. Coming there and feeding and trying to feed and all that.
My mom got a staph infection too, so she was out, and then she was on the road with my grandma. So my grandma's Loretta Lynn, and so immediately that kind of went on, and then I was when I got out of the hospital 30 days later, I was on the road with my grandma.
Wow.
So that was my childhood, was being on the road.
From an infant?
From an infant.
Wow.
And my first memory I have of being a kid was I was 2 years old, and I was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in ABCs, and all I saw was a blurry crowd and the piano player. And there was never a question of what do I want to do? And until later on in life, I was like, okay, is this what I want to do?
It was just a given that that's what you're going to do.
It was a given,
so
and I did it, and I sang, and I could sing, and so I was like, oh, well then.
Yes, Emmy has the most beautiful voice.
Yeah, so, and I was really shy as a kid too. I wore big T-shirts, and I got a little bit bullied at school. People thought how I lived was really, they would say I was trashy or something because I wore these big T-shirts, and I don't know, I felt very shy as a kid. And so that kind of struggled with weight, middle school, and and then you grow into yourself and hormones, and then I just kind of lost it all naturally. And I was like, oh, people like you when you look a certain way. And I think that and then I was on the road and doing music, and I was like, oh, I don't know, I wasn't a kid anymore, and I think it was just, I don't know, I think the pressure of the appearance thing was kind of heavy on me too. And
sure, when you're on stage.
But then you lose your gift because you're thinking about what you're going to wear and doing your makeup, and then you're like, what about, did I practice the song? And that love that I had for music, I would be in my bedroom for hours and hours and hours practicing for talent shows, writing songs for the girls in my school, about their depression, whenever I didn't have any of that until I was older. And so I try to put myself always in people's shoes and write those songs. And I didn't struggle until more in high school of I was aware of my body and aware of my flaws in ways that I, wrote songs in ways that I didn't really believe in, but I thought were those hits or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Which are normally the ones that don't really take off.
Kind of chase it.
So
was your mom a singer as well?
My mom.
Because you said she was on the road with your grandma.
Yeah. She started singing in her 30s.
So your mom was a performer as well?
With her twin. So my mom is a twin, Patsy and Peggy.
And she was Loretta Lynn's daughter.
Yeah.
So this kind of passed down that way.
And she managed my grandma. So, yeah, we were all really close. My mom had 7 kids, and I was the second to last. I have a full brother, but all the rest of my siblings are half.
Okay.
So, yeah. So half family, a lot of the half siblings in my family.
And how was that? Like, did you like that growing up? Did you feel uncomfortable? Was there anything about that? Because you also then had multiple stepdads?
My dad was the one that my mom ended up being with.
Oh, okay.
Like,
okay.
so she's still with him now.
All right. So it was before,
all my siblings before that. So
they're older than you? You're the youngest?
Yeah, all older than me. I'm the youngest. And my baby brother, and he's 2 years younger than me, and his name's David. He lives in New York, actually.
Yeah, wow. I know your parents were telling me about him.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Yeah.
So like the pressure, so you're saying you didn't start feeling like anxiety or depression until your teenage years. So when you were younger and you were like out on the road and singing, you just felt like free. And
when I was a kid.
Yeah, when you were a kid. And then why do you think that changed?
Well, in high school, I remember I liked this boy so much. I know it has nothing to do with my music or anything heavy, but I remember just him liking my best friend. And I remember that took such a toll on me. And I almost was like trying to escape, I think, like in a way, like feeling like a loser and like rejection so hard. I was like, I'm going to prove you that I am like awesome. And so I just started kind of, I don't know, creating that, I guess I would call it like an ego, really strongly in that kind of time. And now it feels like an undressing. It was like what I'm trying to do now, but it's hard unlearning all those things that you tell yourself of. You have to look like this. You have to write songs like this. And so I'm having to constantly be like, okay, is this true? Or is this like my false self? You know, is this my true self or this is my false self? So I think like, even though as hard as it is, I'm trying to practice being like, working that part of my brain.
Yeah.
Like, is this true?
Yeah. Because you have that beautiful song. It's called Skinny, right? Yeah.
Skinny.
Yeah, and that is probably very helpful to like so many.
And I had that song for like, oh my gosh, Tyler, how long did we have Skinny?
Before we released it?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was probably months.
Like half a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to release that song because I was like, I don't want people to look at me like I'm that girl, you know, that struggles with that. And so
it's a song she wrote about.
Yeah, when did you write it?
I think I wrote it maybe like May, and I ended up May, June, July.
So fairly recently, and that was
a while ago, 2023.
Okay.
And then American Idol found me through Songhouse because it went viral, and then they were like, "Hey, do you want to come on American Idol?" And I ended up showing up at my audition, and I had like full thing of makeup on, and then I was like, I heard this like voice be like, "Take off the makeup," and I was like, "Oh." He's like, "Do not wear fake tan." I'm like, "No." And like to me, I'm like, ew, you know, like I'm like, please, because you know, as like when you're told you're gonna be washed out under the lights, like put on some fake tan or whatever, and I just kind of learned. I mean, I still struggle with fake tan, but yeah, and I showed up, and I literally I felt like Emmy in elementary school.
Oh wow!
And I knew that if I got a yes for me. And I played one song, and they were like, "Can you play something else? Like, we want to hear more originals." And I said, I mean, they found me through this song called Skinny. Do you want to hear it? And I played it, and me and Katy Perry really hit it off. And she was like, "You were a messenger. You're supposed to like do this and write songs."
Yeah.
So that was kind of, but the battle is staying in that and not trying to swing to this other part that you almost work so hard to get at, you know.
Yeah, meaning that the vulnerability is what gets you there, and being able to reveal that vulnerability. But then once you're in there, you want to go to the side that makes it seem like you're not vulnerable, or that you're really cool, or, you know, that kind of more what people expect from a celebrity or somebody that's really successful.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and I'm not that. You know, like I'm just a ordinary shy kid that was like, yeah, my grandma's Loretta Lynn, but I don't get any of that.
Right.
You know, like if anything, it's kind of harder because people are always comparing you. And,
yes,
you know, she got that because of her grandma. Whenever I've written songs since I was 4, but none of it's credited to you.
Yeah.
And so you constantly feel like my success, people don't ever think like it's because of me. It's always because of where I've come from.
Right,
and
because you had an extra advantage or something like that. Instead of looking at it like, you know, the way I like to look at it is a genetic trait, meaning Barry Bonds, one of the best baseball players. His father was a great baseball player. And,
I never looked at it like that.
Yeah, it's a trait. These are genetic traits that really are either right brain or left brain dominance, but specific parts of your brain. Songwriters, we talk about, it's really that right side of the brain for the most part. There are certain areas that have to do with that, really an area called the temporal lobe that has a lot to do with hearing music and sounds and writing words and melodies and putting that all together. And when someone's unusually gifted or talented, it literally is that there's an area of their brain that is more connected, that is more tightly connected, that is stronger, and that is often genetically gifted. Now you can build those connections by using them over and over, so you can get people that, maybe nobody in their family ever wrote a song and they just really want to be good and they do it over and over. But it's more likely that it comes as a gift. Whatever your grandmother had that made her. Now, was anybody in her family that you know of was musical? Was her mom or dad, did they sing at all? And I know her dad was a coal miner, but
Yeah. Not that I know of, actually. I mean, I'm sure there's
somewhere in the family tree, there's got to be other people. That just doesn't arise out of nothing.
Because Crystal Gale is also my grandma's. If you know who Crystal Gale is, also my grandma's sister.
Right. Okay, that's
so
right.
It's
I
almost
remember
like there
that.
has to be someone.
That's funny. I
if
forgot
it's
about
Clara,
that.
Which is, I think
that.
her name's Clara. My grandma or my great grandma. I mean, she might have sang. I need to ask my mom when I get home. That makes me really curious.
I mean, now you say it about Crystal Gale, it's got to be, because you're talking about two of the best singers probably in the country that I've ever known.
Yeah.
Is your grandmother and Crystal
Right.
Gale. She was amazing,
Amazing.
I mean, incredible voices.
Yeah.
And, so that doesn't come out of nowhere. That's a gift. And that, obviously you were born with that. And you were literally born to write. Like Ellie's grandmother also was an incredible singer and was great with music and had an incredible ear.
And that was the coal miner.
That was my mom.
Yes.
My mom was a coal miner's daughter. Her grandmother was a coal miner's daughter, and so was yours. So it's pretty interesting, actually.
But I can attest to your songwriting ability, because I remember the first time we ever wrote together, I was just absolutely blown away. So yes,
That was really fun.
that was really fun. And I think we both like speaking on your song Skinny, like you helped with, we spoke about that a little bit, like that we both struggled with those things, and that's like something that's hard for me to be open about, and you got me to be really open about it, and that was very meaningful for me.
Come on,
Yeah.
It's crazy because so many people struggle with eating disorders and no one talks about it.
Yeah.
So to me, I had bulimia, and so that was really hard because it was like, I don't know, you try to fill this gap inside of you, and then you don't fill it, and then you feel shame, and then you're like, oh well, this isn't gonna fix it, and then you know.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, if we can talk about it, I think it's such an important thing. And as
I'm
we know,
known for the song Skinny. So,
Yeah.
hey,
Right.
throw me in, coach.
but I know it's still hard to talk about it in details, especially. And again, we've understood that personally here as well. So, and just from a neurological standpoint, it's interesting because anorexia is really a right brain deficit where the left brain is overactive. It's more in the realm of like a lot of what we see with OCD or certain types of OCD or tics or autism or ADHD, whereas bulimia is more of a right brain dominance or a left brain deficit. Yes. So they're different, and they usually have different, things, and neurologically and emotionally what is driving you to do it. So that's why I think it's important to explore that as to like when that started, what drove you to it? Like, what was the point? When you do it, you're doing it for a reason, right? Or some sort of a reason. So where did that start for you?
Probably if I'm like feeling some kind of, whenever it first started, I think I was in high school, and I remember just not keeping an apple down, like an apple and peanut butter. And I was like, I don't know. I remember telling my mom this when I was 16, and I said, I don't know. I feel like, I had struggled with anorexia and bulimia. The first, when I was a teenager, I struggled more with anorexia. And I told her, I said, why would I eat? I feel like I'm already dead. Why would I eat? I feel like literally dead on the inside, Mom. And I remember just not knowing anything who I was. And then I left for a mission. And then for like a missions organization, I was part of this, like, I was never believed in God. And then I went to this place and I was like, oh my gosh, like, how can there not be? And then saw all this pain. And then I came back and got in the music industry, where I was used to being in that pressure. And then I turned into bulimic.
And,
Not anymore, thank
And
God,
how
but-
did the bulimia, how was it related to the pressure? Meaning, was there something there that you were trying to literally get out of you? Or was there like an emotion like shame or embarrassment or
Probably
fear?
more shame,
Or
shame and fear.
Yeah.
Probably more of those two. Because I just ate. I just remember just eating whenever I'd feel an emotion. I'd be like, I don't want to feel this. And it'd kind of numb me out and chill me out a little bit. And then I'd feel shame because I did it.
because you ate?
Yeah.
Because you were...
Because I was overeating.
Because you felt like...
Could just have a little bit.
Was it also because you were, it was important for you to look a certain way so that people would like you? Or, I mean, did it kind of go back in a way to, like
That
you
childhood
said,
thing.
when that boy liked your friend and you
Right.
wanted to change yourself? And
Right.
so was that something where like looks became something suddenly important?
Yeah, it was when I came back into the music industry. So every time I've gotten back around anything music wise, because I was a missionary for 4 years and I loved it. And I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be not in Brazil. And I lived in Brazil and I was like, I saw the Nashville Highway and I was like, I'm supposed to go back and write songs about like freedom. And then when I came to Nashville, I was like, why am I struggling? Like the lyric that I wrote is, saw the war, felt the pain, and miracles in his name, and I just want to be skinny. Like it was almost like I've seen this, and now I just want to be skinny. Like out of all the things that I've seen in life, and I went back to the thing that I felt like I got free of,
No.
and that was more of the shame. Yeah, so that's what that song was about, was getting free, and then you go back to it. Like,
Well,
and
again, what we try to do
Wow.
is try to separate,
Pretty amazing.
because obviously that's something that's very emotional, and you can see how you know, again, the shame is what you feel and you experience, and you look at it and you're saying, you know, why would I do that? I mean, I've seen so many things, and I'm worried about being skinny, which is kind of superficial. But from a neurological standpoint, when you go back into music, you start using that right brain at a level that you don't when you're not using music, right? So you use that gift, but that gift,
Activates.
all around that gift,
Yeah.
are these other networks of shame and guilt and fear and embarrassment.
never.
I know it's
And
so
so
interesting.
as you start doing that, you bring all of those up. And
Wow.
so that's where, and so along with that comes, you know, like that need sometimes to, again, purge whatever it is, try to get rid of that guilt.
And I took baths too. I like wanted to get something off me. I felt like I was like, I don't know what that was. It was that, and then there was like taking. And I don't know if you know anything about anyone that has ever struggled with like being a bulimic, but then also like I felt like I had to like get it off me, like the shame off me or something. I wanted to wash it off, and so I remember always taking baths and that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's unusual, but that's,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's also interesting because obviously, well, I've never
just
said
trying
this.
to wash it off. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what it was. Just something in my brain. I was like trying to almost like rewrite the story, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna start tomorrow, and like, you know, and then I just
well, the right brain
Yeah,
also
that makes
generates
sense.
disgust. A big emotion of the right brain is disgust. So being unclean, or food being, you know, or ingesting thing that's disgusting, or seeing something that's disgusting,
wow.
you know, it makes you feel nauseous. And so and again, when you're nauseous, what do? You throw up.
Right.
So you can see how all of that would be so connected
Fascinating.
to one another, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he always says, because I struggled with the same thing, which I haven't talked about on the podcast yet, but thank you for being so open, because it'll make me more open. But what like so someone with like autism or on that spectrum is like more of a left brain person, and a lot of those people, they can't really feel their bodies much, and they don't like feel their bodies in space and things like that. And then on the opposite side, where like we're super right brain people, we feel our bodies so much, and that's where like body dysmorphia comes from and all of those things, because you're like so hyper aware of it, where on the other side they like don't feel themselves at all, right?
That's true.
So
So that is the right brain.
yeah,
The right
That's-
brain dominance, yes.
That's nuts.
I
Yeah.
know, yeah.
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 And that's why, you know, again, the answer for it is to actually have a combination of behavioral therapy or
Right.
eating therapy, but along with really trying to change your brain. But the thing is, you want to, and this is what a lot of people are afraid of, if we want to calm down that right brain, Are you afraid of losing the gift, right? Where you won't be able to write songs, but actually it doesn't have to be that way. You can just bring up the left side, which is really joy and pride and motivation.
So that's the left side.
That's the left side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, cause you're saying feelings of like shame and embarrassment. And those are, we talk about that all the time, which is such a funny thing for all of us to choose to be performers. And like, I always thought about that when I was in high school. I was like, I like to dress kind of really crazy, but then I was also super tall with a unibrow and I would be like dressed like Avril Lavigne and I would get made fun of. But it was like every day I wanted to express myself, but then also my biggest fear on earth was to get made fun of. And so it was just like it's like such a weird, I don't know why we choose to put ourselves out there every day when we're also the most afraid of being rejected or whatever. But yeah, that's a lot of the right brain thing.
That is wild to me.
Yeah.
Well, you're born with this gift.
Right.
God gave it to you. The universe gave it to you. However you look at it, it comes from your family. It's there. And so you're supposed to share that gift. That's why you were given it. But then that gift comes from that right brain dominance. But then in that same vein is the part of being the biggest fear of the right brain is rejection. So you want people to love you. You want people to accept you. You have this gift that you want to share. That gift comes from that area of the brain. But in then doing it, it also, that fear of rejection and that fear of people not liking you, and especially the fear of being judged, is also there. And that balance. So I'm sure you've probably struggled with that in some way, right?
So yes, and so what you're saying is the right brain is coming back to music. The reason why there's such a fear in coming back into being a creative, it's like it's going to activate that fear part of my brain.
Exactly.
So it's not that I'm doing the wrong thing, because I'm always thinking, why am I feeling anxiety? Why do I feel that pit in my stomach? Why do I want to run away and fly to Brazil?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe it's not that I'm doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Maybe it's just like you said, it's just that working that right part of my brain.
Yes.
Wow. I've never looked at that.
And to a certain extent, that's very brave of you.
Right.
Because
Yes.
in sharing your gift, you're going to suffer.
Right.
Right? Because in the right brain is subconscious. So it's not like you're saying to yourself, I'm going to do this and I'm going to have pain and I'm going to suffer and but it's going to happen. And there's a part of you subconsciously that knows when I go back to that gift and I use this gift, I'm going to suffer for using that gift.
Right.
So it's pretty amazing. It's almost like that kind of comes with it. I'm going to give you this gift, but you're going to suffer from it. But are you strong enough to actually, live with that suffering?
Right.
And share the gift, which makes it even more of a gift, really.
Right. Because it's not about you. It's like
No.
the common good.
Right.
It's like sacrifice.
But it doesn't feel that way. Because you just feel guilt and shame or whatever. And then if you do get success and people are like, wow, you're wonderful, you probably feel like, well, I shouldn't feel good about myself. You know what I mean? Like you probably feel guilty about that.
Right.
And then if they don't like you, you feel guilty about that.
Right.
Yeah.
That is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about because you've been opening for Megan Maroney, right? Yeah, which is amazing. I meant to tell you that. How do you feel being on stage in front of all of those people?
Oh gosh, I remember it's like prior to everything, I get so nervous and like, oh my gosh, why did I even say yes to doing this?
Yeah.
And then I got up there and I started playing Skinny, and I just saw everyone in the front row just crying.
Oh, wow.
And don't make me cry. It's just like, it is like the gift. It's like, that's why I'm on the earth.
That's what you're here
but
for.
I only have a handful of those songs because those are the ones that cost you something. But I know that my favorite ones that I play are those kinds of songs. And, and I have like my set list, and some are just like fun and light. That was like a cover of Gracie Abrams, That's So True song that went viral.
I love that song. Yes.
And they all got their little cameras out, and that was fun. But then I think my heart lives for, writing songs and then people coming up to me later and being like, hey, that song is like my anthem.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think I love music, and I love it, but I also hate it. It's like that boyfriend that you just can't. And you're like, I don't want to let you go, but you're kind of unhealthy for me. But it makes so much sense that that part of my brain that lights up is where the gift is and the curse.
Yeah.
And so it makes a lot of sense to me now. Like, I don't know. I just never heard that in my life of that being in the same place.
Yeah.
No wonder the fear lies is the courage too.
Right. Exactly.
Like, courage and fear is like on the other side of it.
So understanding that, how does that make you feel?
Well, I'm kind of like, when I want to tell my husband to be like, hey, it's not my fault, but it is my fault. But it's like, but my brain is trained in a way of like pressure, the way that I grew up. It is like, it just lies in that same area. And so the fear and the courage piece of singing those songs, it's going to be hard.
Yes.
So I think, I don't know, I'm like, how can I practically kind of work that part?
Well, the good news is you can actually, because by building up the left side, it actually dampens those emotional things without taking away the gift. So it's kind of a way to actually filter out all of the negative stuff or the overwhelming stuff. And you want to find a balance of that too, because feeling those emotions, being so connected to those emotions is when you write your best. Like you're saying, like
conflict. Like, I'm like, why am I trying to start conflict? Like, I'm like, I feel like I need conflict in order to create. And then I was holding my daughter and I was like looking at her and I was just like, I have not written a song about my daughter. Because that's like a different part of me. It feels like it's a different part of my brain, which the joy maybe, like the.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden I started writing a song and I felt more connected to that song than I would have like trying to cause a conflict, you know. And now I'm married, and so the stability is creating, oh my gosh, where are my songs going? Because I'm happy and there's no drama.
Right.
And you're like, oh my gosh, but what about my gift?
Right.
That right part, like, oh my gosh, I don't have bulimia anymore. My daughter, in a way, helped me not do that anymore. Because it was like, this is greater than me. You know, I'm 20 pounds more than I was, but I'm like, but you know, my body had a baby.
Right.
Like, I'm awesome. Like, she worked that part of my brain. And her middle name's Radiant. And I just felt like
beautiful.
Taylor, she looks just like Tyler too. And her name's Taylor Radiant.
Wow.
And I was like, she is radiant joy. Like, that's always what I've known about her. And then I just remember like just looking at her and I was writing this song and it was, but it was correlated with, I think, the joy part. And is joy in the right side of the brain or is it in the left? Like,
well, it's somewhat in the right, but it's mainly left. Happiness is more of the left brain generates more what we consider positive emotions, even though anger is also in the left, even though it really is more considered positive. But so it comes down to what we call approach and withdrawal. The left brain is about approach, going towards things, moving towards things, going after things, pursuing goals. The right brain is more withdrawal. So it's more like cautious. It's more protective. It's more...
Which is why I procrastinate all the time.
That's wild. So wait, so why do you think that... I'm just like trying to learn from a science perspective. I was literally so excited about this, by the way. So I'm like, you can put some like words to the madness. Why do you think that I loved the missions so much? Being in Brazil and like being with people and, you know, being in like the prayer room and then like feeling like I got those downloads and created songs, but from that place of like freedom versus with withdrawing within myself and just shame creating and more like praise. Like, why do you think, was that in a way working my left brain? Like, it wasn't about me so much. And that's almost my solve. Every time I solve something, it's like, why do you think I liked the missions so much?
Well, what drove you to it is, you know, the right brain, the careers that people would go into. One of them is healthcare. I'm a doctor and, you know, you're driven towards helping people, healing people. Healers are typically more naturally right brain. The right brain is more spiritual. It's more in touch with the universe and the big picture. I don't know if there's really interesting TED Talk by a woman named Jill Bolte Taylor. And she was a neuroscientist at Harvard. And her brother was schizophrenic, so she became a neuroscientist to try to understand it. And she tells the story about how one day she was on a treadmill and she had a stroke. And the stroke really hit her left brain. Like she had a stroke in her left brain. And she goes through this kind of funny, it'll make you cry, it'll make you laugh. It's like 12 minutes, but she tells the story of what was going on in those few minutes after her stroke. And she says that every once in a while, she would lose her left brain functions. She couldn't read the numbers on a phone to be able to, she couldn't speak. She couldn't organize anything in her thoughts. But at the same time, she felt huge and expansive and like she was in touch with everything in the universe, like where she felt like, how does all of this fit in this little body? It's not possible. Like she felt connected with everyone and everything in the universe. And, it was interesting because that's what the point of her, that we have these two sides of our brain and they're completely different. Mm-hmm. And that this is what the right brain is about. So, when you're out there doing that, that's what you're drawn to. But that's something that's interesting because you're not looking to get anything, right? You're just looking to help people. So you have no guilt or shame about it because you're really kind of doing what you're meant to do, just to go out there and serve and help people and not looking for yourself. The left brain is really about self. The left brain is about more ego and the right brain is more id. It's more like who we are as a person. And so I think that's where, where there's always this kind of, as Loretta Lynn's daughter, your granddaughter, you have this pressure that people think, well, it's not you, even though you have this gift, and then you have to try to prove it. And then you also want to be successful. It means you want your songs to be successful. So you want things from it, which may also make you feel guilty about that, about sharing that gift. But when you're sharing that gift of just being compassionate and helping people and loving people and empathizing, which is really what the right brain's about as well, but you're not looking to get anything for it, I think then you don't have that shame and guilt.
No. Wow. So it sounds like that's so interesting to me. So I think that maybe shame and guilt are a huge part of my childhood, and that's why this is so scary, and that's why I love the mission so much, is because it's not about self.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you turn that into, like in your career, how do you look at it healthy? Like, how do you look at helping people, but then also like, hey, I'm successful at doing this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing shameful about people knowing who I am.
Right. And it's a good question because I did struggle with that in my early part of my career. And a lot of healthcare practitioners do, because you feel like, you're there to heal people. And if anybody comes to you, you're going to heal them. But then what if somebody comes to you and says, well, I can't pay you, or I don't have any insurance, or, will you do this for me for free? And so you struggle because you want to do that, but then you're not going to have a practice very long if that's all you do.
Yeah.
You can't pay the bills of an office. So you need to have an office and a staff and equipment to be able to do your service at the highest level, which costs a lot of money. And so, but you want to heal people.
It's that tension.
So, yeah,
And
so
there's like
it's
shame
that
in
same
putting
thing. And
and
so for
valuing
years,
yourself.
my staff would always, there was a point where I remember I had an office manager and she said to me, do never talk about money with any patient ever again because you give everything away. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, but I have to work with these people. And they're like, yeah, but you're not going to have an office very long if you do it. So I would have
Tyler's like that too.
Right. So that's the whole thing. I just would never talk about money with anybody. It would be, I'd never feel comfortable. And
that's how I am with shows. I'm like, oh, don't you worry, I'll fly out there. Like, just pay for my flight. Tyler's like, you are not. Sorry, you're fine. You are not going to manage yourself. He's like, you're going to end up not having any money, and you have a child. And I'm like, that is true.
Yeah.
I guess I can't have everything for free, or do everything for free.
Well, it's hard though too, because like I feel like that I struggle with too, where like I feel like I had a roommate once who like I don't know that she was the most talented person, and I'm not trying to be mean. She does great, but I think she was more of a left brain person, and she was just so good at organization and so good at asking for what she wanted, and so she was like getting all of these roles, like she was going out for acting and stuff, and I was like, there's so many people that are so talented, but that because of like someone like me, like because of my right brain, like a lot of times I'll be too afraid to be like, I want this much money, or I want to do this,
which is
or
the
whatever.
left brain.
Yeah,
that's nuts. to me.
Yeah.
Like I know so many people that are in that left brain. They're like, I'm going to be doing this acting thing. I'm going to be trying out for this role. And I'm like, what if like you're not in touch with yourself at all?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man. But then they're probably looking at me like, oh, you have all this talent. You don't do anything with it.
Yeah,
and when you do
exactly.
something with it, then it's like, okay, but then why do you do this? I mean, you'll have a hot season where you're like going around town, and then all of a sudden you're going to be like, okay, now I need to nest for 4 months. I'll see you then.
Well, he talks about that a lot too, because like if I'm like writing so much and I'm like on a roll or whatever and I feel so great, then I'll have this moment where I crash, and I feel like it's kind of like a bipolar thing.
Right.
Because it like happens in like cycles, and then I'll like need to like retreat and like you said, like nest, and then I'll like come back out of it. But he said like a lot of times, because we're right brain people who have a career in doing right brain things every single day, that it's like you overuse that and then you just crash. And that's kind of like how like bipolar works too.
Wow. I couldn't do a publishing deal because I was like, I cannot write songs like this every day.
Yeah.
I want to write 12 great songs, but I cannot sit in a room from 11 to 3 creating all the time, because I need to live a little.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is like how much am I nesting, or how much do I just need to like actually like just rest my brain?
Yeah.
Am I like escaping, or am I actually needing rest? That's interesting.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
combination of a bunch of things. Obviously, to write a great song, you have to tap into that gift,
Yeah.
which taps into those emotions, which taps into that pain and that guilt. And if you're going through that all day, every day, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Stuff.
There are some happy songs too.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of, you have a song coming out this week, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So
Or,
do you want to
yeah,
tell us about that?
It's called Phone Calls to Heaven, and we wrote it about people that have just lost their kids too soon. It was for this organization called Rikers Rainbow, and they wanted a theme song. And then I ended up just loving the song so much, I was like, hey, why don't we just put this out?
Oh my God.
And so it's about just wanting to call your baby and
Wow.
just be like, hey, I wish I could hear you say mama, like that. So it's just like phone calls to heaven. I wish I could make a phone call to heaven. So
Well, right now, since you just had a baby and you understand nobody fully understands what love is until you have a child, right?
That is true.
There's nothing like it, and especially for men, because, there's nothing like that. I remember the first time I held her in my arms, it was I remember looking at my wife, I was like, oh my God, this is scary how much I feel right now. And,
Thanks, Dad.
no, really, it was unbelievable. And so writing that song must have come even that much more to you, because you could almost imagine if you lost that.
I couldn't imagine losing
No.
a baby. I mean, I remember the lady that runs the organization, she said that she had a car seat and just not being able to put her baby. It makes me cry. It's like just having that car seat in the back seat and like the hope.
Wow.
And so I think the beautiful thing about being a conduit for people's pain and being
Yeah.
able to, I can tap into it maybe because it's not so heavy for me, or even if it is heavy for me, I think God's just given me an ability to just be like, heal, like the same thing, like healing. It's just, and so that's what this song represents for me, is just a gift for them.
Yeah.
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 So it wasn't painful for you, because it was, again, you were doing something, you're sharing it.
Yeah,
And
it's the
even though
common
you're
good.
putting it out there and you're going to get some notoriety from it, that's not the purpose of it. The purpose was that you just wanted to help heal
It's just
people.
a gift.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
gift.
It's beautiful.
And even though it was just painful to hear people's stories, and it's just kind of like, the least that I could do, this is my gift naturally, is write a melody and write some lyrics for these people to give their soul a voice. And I just couldn't. I was hanging up Taylor's little dress, and I was like, I cannot imagine going through any of that ever. But
Yeah.
so it was really cool being with those people and hearing their stories.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, that's like we talk about a lot too. It's just like the blessing, and it's a blessing and it's a curse to be able to like, because right brain people can feel other people's emotions so deeply. So it's like a blessing to be able to take on what that could possibly feel like and put it into words for someone and give them that, and they're like, this is all the things I was feeling, but I didn't know how to put it into words.
Right.
But then it's like also kind of you took on that emotion in your heart. It's going to take a little time to get
You're like, Taylor, okay,
get rid of that.
you're okay. You're okay. Taylor's
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
But
yeah.
wow.
because one of the things that we talked about, and like you said, when you sing that song Skinny, there's so many people out there. You probably don't realize how many people also struggle or suffer with the same thing or the same emotions, right? Besides having a daughter, is there anything else that you were able to do to help yourself that might help somebody else out there that's struggling with that right now, that you would say this is what you did or told yourself, or, you know, anything that you know, would tell somebody else?
I don't think people are like looking at us like we look at ourselves. So I think like a big thing for me, I remember I was pregnant and I was kind of like worried about like just putting on the weight, and Tyler was like, I can't even tell. And I think being kind of, oh, is it, maybe it's not as crazy as it like looks. And I think just like my relationship with God too, like being like, I'm hungry for something deeper. I'm not hungry for food right now. Like, can you just speak to me in a way like, what do I actually need? And I think for me, it was pausing, because for me, the eating disorder was just so compulsive, you know? And so I think for me, I just had to kind of breathe. Like, okay, is this going to help me? No, it's not going to help me. Why don't I find something healthy? And so I started getting like a trainer and like just, and just so what's going to be a healthy like lifestyle for a, not I guess a diet, but like a way of eating that's healthy for me. And I got a lot of like more of the professional kind of help along it. So I think getting a professional and just really been in the therapy was really important. Just talk about it and be like,
That's great.
I don't like how I look, and finding someone that like loves you and is like, hey, can you even tell? And they're like, no, I cannot tell. You're nuts. And I was like, okay. But also writing songs about it. I think writing Skinny made me feel like I was responsible. I was like, oh, I wrote this song about freedom. Am I like practicing what I'm preaching? And I think I didn't want to release that song until I knew I had a hold on it.
So it made you keep yourself accountable.
Which is why I didn't want to release it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think the releasing Skinny could have been one of the greatest gifts, because it made me feel like I was accountable. Doing something like American Idol and not wearing any makeup and coming fair and just playing Skinny, I was like, I feel like I have like a weight on me now.
Yeah.
I want to be a good influence.
Right.
Yeah.
So what am I doing in secret? And
And
so I think
that's
for
a
me,
really
that was kinda-
powerful thing. I always talk about that. I've always taught, and a lot of things as I'm learning something, if you learn it with the idea that someday you're going to teach it to others. So basically you're saying, I'm going to write this with the idea that it's actually trying to teach and
heal.
help other people. Right. And that keeps you accountable, because you have to know it at a different level, and you have to walk your talk. You have to actually be that person.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was probably for me the most.
Well, thank you so much, Emmy, for like being so open about all of this. I feel like this is exactly why I started this podcast. So like, you know, there's so many people that look up to you, and for you to be this vulnerable and then be able to hear you talk about it, and you're still able to like overcome it. And yeah, it's really inspiring. And so I feel like honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. That's what I would say. Inspiring. You're a very inspiring young person, and
Thank you.
You know, with all your talent and everything, but you just, you know, I think what we've touched on today is going to help a lot of people, and your music and what you're doing, and just God bless you for everything that you're doing, and keep on doing it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, guys, go check out her new song.
Oh yeah, check it out.
Bye.